Thank you for joining us for this Dental Assisting Council meeting. My name is Sandra F. Robbins. I am the chair of the Dental Assisting Board. Today is Wednesday, May 14, 2025. This is an official meeting of the Dental Assisting Council. The council welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is this council's intent to ask for public comments prior to the council taking action on any agenda item. Depending on the number of people who would like to testify on a particular agenda item, a total time limit may be imposed. We ask all speakers to please stay on topic and not repeat testimony already provided. If you agree with testimony already provided, please just state your name and that you are in support of any comments previously provided. If a time limit is determined to be necessary, please keep your comments within that time limit. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask for board staff to call the roll.
Good morning. My name is Morella Turan. I will now call the roll. Epps Robbins,
Epps Robbins, present.
Fowler, present. Gerlach,
Present.
Loren,
Present.
Miyazaki,
Miyazaki present.
Olagi,
Olagi present.
Smith.
Smith present.
A quorum has been established.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 2, public comment on items not on the agenda. Before we open public comment on matters not on the agenda, I would like to remind everyone that public comment should address the council as a whole and not individual members. Please be aware that public comment during this agenda item should provide information to the council members, but is not a discussion between the council members and the public. The only action council members can take right now is to listen to comments and decide whether they want a further agenda item on the topic. Though this may seem at times like the council members are not being responsive, following the guidelines is critical to ensure the rules of the Open Meeting Act are followed to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the council's mission. In the interest of time, as we have done in the past, we would like to request that public comments not repeat statements made by a prior commentator. If you are in support of a statement made by a prior individual and your comments have already been made, please just state your name or association and your support for the previous commentator. Legislative hearings regularly use this practice, and as it is a good way to ensure that we can hear from everyone today. Are there any public comments? With none so, we would like to move on to agenda item number 3, discussion and possible action on February 6, 2025 meeting minutes. Is there any council member discussion?
Miyazaki.
I would like to see if I can make a clarification on page 19 of the meeting materials in the last paragraph. It says Councilmember Miyazaki noted on, and I'm wondering if that could be changed to Councilmember Miyazaki wanted to address the public comment concerning a person in a rural area and being required to immediately take the course and add, might view this as a hardship.
Is the motion stated? So you just want to change that? Okay. We need to change what legal requires.
And I believe the recording can be viewed to see if that could be established. I just wanted to clarify what the gist of that first, what I meant to say during the meeting.
Okay.
If there's no other dental assisting council members, can I make a motion to approve the minutes as revised?
Yes.
Fowler, second.
Epps? Second, do a second on that? All right. Thank you. Board staff, please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item. Oh, I'm sorry. Before that, are there any public comments? No public comments? Okay, we're going to move forward. Thank you, board staff. Please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item.
This Marilla Teran, I will now call the roll. Epps Robbins,
Epps Robbins, aye.
Fowler,
Fowler, aye.
Gerlach,
Gerlach, aye.
Loren,
Loring, aye.
Miyazaki,
Miyazaki, aye.
Olagi, Smith.
Smith, aye.
The motion passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 4, Assistant Executive Officer Report. I'm going to ask Christy Bell, Assistant Executive Officer, to present this agenda item.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Christy Bell. I'm the Assistant Executive Officer. I'd like to provide a brief update on board operations and our strategic plan. Regarding operations, the board is working with DCA to comply with the governor's return to work executive order. The board was already limiting telework to 2 days per week, so fortunately there is minimal impact to board staff and operations. The requirement is now that they are in the office 4 days a week. I am pleased to report that the board has filled all vacant positions. One caveat is that some positions are still in the final phase of background checks. We are confident that those individuals will be successful. One of the board's most recent hires, Albert Law, came to us from the Dental Hygiene Board of California. He was the Assistant Executive Officer. Albert brings a wealth of knowledge, including having been a juvenile correction officer and a special investigator. This experience, combined with his AEO skills, makes him a perfect candidate for the Enforcement Division Administrator position. As shared at the February 2025 board meeting, DCA's Solid Unit will be conducting strategic planning for the board. The process is expected to begin this summer with a survey distribution and data compilation occurring over the summer months with follow-up at the November board meeting. The current strategic plan is on the board's website, but copies are available. The board lists 4 overarching goals. They are licensing and examinations. There were 6 objectives. These objectives have mostly been met except for number 1, which is ongoing monitoring of license portability and workforce shortages. The second goal is consumer protection and enforcement. We had 4 objectives. While some of these have been met, the board is still waiting for the DCA Enlightened Enforcement Report, which should allow the board to address the remaining objectives. Goal 3 is communication and customer service. The board achieved all 4 objectives. And goal 4 is administrative services. We had 3 objectives, and the board has achieved all of them. The purpose of this today is not to discuss the goals or status, but to share that the board has made excellent progress, and a more thorough discussion and facilitated discussion will occur in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any public comments? Are there any council member discussions? Okay. Go ahead with your comment. Okay. Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 5 on dental assisting examination statistics. I'm going to ask Tina Valeri, Chief of License and Program Compliance and Dental Assisting, to present this agenda item.
Good morning. My name is Tina Valerie. I'm the Chief of Dental Assisting and License and Program Compliance. Agenda item 5 begins on page 21 of your meeting materials and provides the examination statistics for the RDA Combined Written and Law and Ethics exam, the RDA EF written exam, the orthodontic assistant written exam, and the dental sedation assistant written exam. And this is for fiscal years 2024 and 2025 through March 31st of 2025, along with the prior 3 fiscal years. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is there any council member discussion? Are there any public comments? Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 6, update on dental assisting licensing statistics. Once again, I'm going to ask Ms. Valeri to present the agenda item.
Good morning. This agenda item begins on page 23 and goes through page 33 of your meeting materials. This memo provides an overview of the licensing statistics for the dental assisting unit. The tables and charts within this memo indicate the number of applications received, approved, abandoned, and denied. It provides the number of licenses issued by month, along with the number of active, inactive, delinquent, and canceled licenses. You will also find information about the number of current and active RDAs by county and population. The statistics provided are for fiscal year 2024 through 2025 through March 31st of 2025, along with the prior 3 fiscal years. And again, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any council member discussion?
Miyazaki, I just wanted to point out that I pointed this out at the last meeting for the Dental Assisting Council on page 30 of 147 of the meeting materials. There's information on the statistics on the licensure, and again, for the registered dental assistant, it seems like the retention rate is rather low, 33%. And I encourage the stakeholders to possibly help with finding out the reason why our retention rate is not that great. And we could possibly invite the Dental Assisting National Board. They do research on labor statistics for dental assistants. Mostly it's certified dental assistants, but that information might be helpful for California to address maybe, or to look at some of the issues regarding the labor shortage. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any public comments? Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 7, update and discussion on registered dental assistant and registered dental assistant in extended functions, educational programs and courses, applications, approvals, and reevaluations. I'm going to ask Ms. Valeri to present the agenda item.
Good morning. I will be presenting agenda item 7, which begins on page 34 of your meeting materials and provides an overview of the dental assisting educational courses that have been approved and denied, along with those that are deficient and pending. You will also find information on the number of site visits conducted for the fiscal year 2024 through 2025 through March 31st of 2025, along with the prior 3 fiscal years. On page 36 and 37, you will find a list of programs and courses approved by name and type for fiscal year 2024 through 2025 through March 31st of 2025, along with the total number of approved dental assisting educational programs and courses by type that are in active status. Beginning on page 37, we have provided information regarding the reevaluations we have conducted in fiscal year 2024 through 2025 through March 31st of 2025. The reevaluations we have conducted have been initiated based on 2 scenarios. Either they were a standard reevaluation based on the board's mandate to conduct reevaluations every 7 years, or they were initiated based on complaints received. On page 38 of your meeting materials, we have provided the results and status of the reevaluations we have conducted to date by type of program. We feel it is important to point out that of the 21 reevaluations that have been completed, 12 have resulted in a withdrawal of approval. This is due to a variety of reasons, such as programs and courses not responding to the reevaluation notices, insufficient clinical instruction hours, the sequence of instruction incomplete and insufficient evaluation forms, and insufficient student records. Board staff believe this is a concerning statistic and will continue to follow and report on this at future meetings. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any council member discussions? Dr. Yes, please go ahead.
Good morning. Yes, I'm just curious. I'd like to know the percentage of RDAs that go through an educational program versus the ones that are trained in the office and then later take their RDA exam. Does anybody who would know that?
We do not have that statistic with us today, but I could definitely try to pull that information together and bring it back to a future meeting.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting to find out. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Miyazaki? I also agree with Dr. Lurden. That would be an interesting statistic to find out about the educational programs, educational based students versus the on-the-job training. And I also want to reiterate that I am concerned, along with the dental board staff, about the programs that were either they withdrew their reevaluation or their application was found deficient. I'm concerned about the students. I mean, how many students were in those programs that took these courses? And it's really a disservice to the students and really not ethically sound practice.
I will just comment, I don't know the percentage, but the majority of the applications we receive are from educational avenues. So we do definitely get a decent amount of work experience, but the majority are education.
Thank you. Is there any further council member discussion?
Just for clarification, Tina, would you say that the code-approved programs, there's not that many code-approved programs? The educationally trained dental assistants come from other types of educational programs, right?
So I honestly don't know how many of the ones that we have approved are CODA approved anymore. I could find that out. But what I will say is that the applicants come from a variety of different programs. Any of the ones that are on our list of approved programs could be where the students, are applying from. But there are, higher volumes from certain schools. But again, I could try to pull those statistics, as far as even the schools, if we wanted to see that as well.
Miyazaki, I don't think that's necessary, but it would be just interesting to find out the school number of schools that were CODA accredited.
Fowler, I think that information would be helpful. If you could, I would love to know of all the educational institutions that we have for assisting, what is actually CODA approved.
Is there any further council member discussion? Are there any public comments? Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 8, update discussion and possible recommendation to the board on legislative proposal to add Business and Professional Code BPC, Section 1778, relating to board approval of dental assistant educational programs and courses. Once again, I'm going to ask Ms. Valeri to present this agenda item.
Miyazaki, before Tina Valerie goes into her dialogue, I've been asked to summarize the background information for agenda item number 8, which is the update discussion and possible recommendation on legislative proposal to add Business and Professions Code, Section 1778, relating to board-approved dental assisting educational programs and courses. I'm only going to read the first couple sentences of the introduction, then go into a summary of the background information, which is on pages 1 through 11 of the agenda item number 8, or pages 40 to 50 of the Dental Assisting Council meeting materials. Introduction. The Dental Board of California staff have identified inefficiencies in the regulations for approving, inspecting, and evaluating registered dental assistant and RDAEF educational programs and courses. Further recent trends suggest a decline of licensed dental auxiliaries, which impacts consumer access to dental care. Board staff seek the Dental Assisting Council review of dental auxiliaries education requirements to determine if legislative or regulatory amendments may improve dental auxiliary licensure, education, and/or licensure portability and board program course approval. Starting August 2022, working groups made up of Dental Assisting Council members, either separately or in conjunction with board staff, have researched and collected information from various state dental boards concerning certification and/or licensure, educational requirements, allowable duties, and reciprocity for dental assistants. As a result, most of the findings were inconsistent from state to state, with only a few exceptions. One exception is that the dental assisting programs accredited by the Commission on Dental Accreditation, CODA, has specific curriculum requirements, and CODA-approved programs undergo a rigorous site visit every 7 years. The other consistent finding was that the Dental Assisting National Board Certified Dental Assistant Certification is accepted for licensure/certification in some states. It is important to note that although certain states may accept CDA certification, the duties allowable of a CDA can vary from state to state. Ultimately, to remove barriers to RDA licensure, a recently passed California bill allows dental assistants from states outside of California who have an active CDA certificate to become licensed as an RDA. California has many different types of dental assisting educational programs. Some programs are approved by the DBC as RDA-approved programs. Other programs offer dental assisting educational training through coursework and externships to high school, adult ed, apprenticeship, non-credit, and other pathways. Dental assisting programs can vary from community colleges to for-profit institutions, private dental offices, or individuals offering continuing education. Costs for these programs or courses can range from free, utilizing the California Promise Program, first 2 years at community college for free, to several $1,000s to $30,000. Dental assistants in California can also be eligible for RDA licensure by work experience. Using this pathway, dental assistants must take and successfully complete required courses in order to apply for the RDA licensure. These courses are often standalone courses which require approval by the DBC. The types of organizations obtaining standalone course approvals can range from a variety of entities, including RDA programs, educational programs, various dental organizations or dental societies, individual continuing education providers. New RDA programs and new course applications are constantly being submitted throughout the year for approval by the dental board staff. In addition, current programs and courses also need reevaluation required by law by board staff as well. Before I continue to the next section, I would like to mention for the record that there are minimal requirements for unlicensed dental assistants, and they are not regulated by the dental board. In the past, groups have requested for the board to regulate unlicensed dental assistants, for example, by permit, which include a background check, fingerprinting, etc. After passage of the board's Sunset Bill, SB 1453, it was determined the new infection control requirements and radiation safety courses had issues. In addition, The board staff concurrently has to continue to evaluate, reevaluate, and approve RDA programs and courses. Tina Valerie, Dental Assisting Unit Manager, will be discussing the issues about programs and course approval, reevaluation, evaluation, including compliance issues after the summary. So here's the question. In order to find consistent program or course approval that doesn't require dental board staff, should the DBC consider having an appropriate agency, exam, or method responsible for program and course approval, evaluation, and reevaluation, or some process thereof? Attached is a legislative proposal on page 52 of the DAC meeting materials for consideration. We would like to hear from all of you. I also want to say that the council does not need to act on this proposal. A different course of action may be arrived upon once we have an opportunity to discuss this.
Good morning. As Councilmember Miyazaki mentioned, we are trying to highlight the need to change the dental assistant educational program and course review and approval process to an accrediting body that regularly reviews educational programs. It has been about 15 years since the last revisions to the educational regulations were made. And as we all know, there have been significant advances in the dental field and with the electronic delivery of education since COVID. Board staff have struggled to review initial and renewal applications and to perform site visits to ensure each educational program and course meets the minimum regulatory requirements. As mentioned in a previous agenda item, we have been conducting standard and complaint-driven reevaluations of programs and courses and have found major compliance issues with the majority. The issues include such things as failing to provide the minimum number of required hours in clinical instruction. Regulation requires a minimum of 265 hours, and what we have seen are hours or programs only requiring as low as 98 hours, 170 hours, 180 hours, and 240 hours of clinical instruction. Program directors are failing to maintain accurate and complete individual student records to demonstrate successful completion of all components of the program or course. For modular or open entry programs, a lack of documentation that students receive basic instruction in infection control and basic chairside skills prior to other program content and activities involving patients, or that they are sequenced appropriately. There are often missing areas of instruction, missing standards of performance on evaluation forms, performance evaluations not being used at all, issues with sterilizing armamentarium, issues with proper usage of extramural facilities. There is often no planned or supervised clinical instruction by the program or course faculty. We are seeing that most course providers enroll students, cover the didactic instruction via electronic media, and then send the students with a homework packet back to their employer dentist to complete the clinical instruction portion of the course. The student then returns the completed homework packet and are then provided their certificates. There is a lack of documentation of compliance with the required instructor to student ratios. A lack of documentation that students are provided with specific performance objectives and standards of performance for laboratory and clinical experiences. Some of the evaluation forms merely say done or not done. The board is often not updated when programs and courses make changes to their curriculum, faculty, locations, and closures. And regulatory requirements are that they report those within 10 days of the change. I also want to point out that in the last year, we have conducted 4 RDA program site visits, and we have 92 that we are responsible for reevaluating every 7 years. And this is just RDA programs. We have over 903 other program and course providers, which require the same oversight. Additionally, we think it is important to point out that of the 21 reevaluations, that the board has completed in the last year, 12 have had their approval withdrawn, 3 have been granted continued approval, and 6 have reported that they have closed. To be even more specific, of the 4 RDA programs that were reevaluated, all have had their approval withdrawn. Another issue that has been discovered after conducting a fiscal analysis and desk audit in relation to Assembly Bill 873 for the interim therapeutic restoration and radiographic decision-making, radiation safety and infection control courses is that the $300 fee charged by the board does not cover staff costs, and the application fees should be increased significantly to cover staff costs. To resolve all the issues I mentioned, we are proposing to move the approval of dental assistant educational programs and courses, education accrediting, or to education accrediting and approval agencies. This proposal would enhance the already existing alternative dental assisting pathway that was established through SB 1453. This pathway allows students that complete a program offered by an institution of secondary or post-secondary education that has a current accreditation from the Commission on Dental Accreditation, or is accredited or approved by an agency recognized by the United States Department of Education or State Department of Education, including career health and technical education programs, regional educational programs, regional occupational centers, or programs or apprenticeship programs registered by the State Department of Education or Division of Apprenticeship Standards of the Department of Industrial Relations and Allied Dental Programs to apply for RDA licensure. Essentially, we are proposing to add that board approval would mean accreditation by at least the Commission on Dental Accreditation, the Bureau for Private Post-Secondary Education, the Accrediting Commission for Senior Colleges and Universities, Western Association of Schools and Colleges, and the Accrediting Commission for Community and Junior Colleges, Western Association of Schools and Colleges, and to add statutory provisions to authorize successful completion of DANB examinations in radiation safety, infection control, Pitt and Fisher sealants, and corona polishing to satisfy completion of a board-approved course in these areas. We are proposing a delayed effective date of January 1st, 2029 to ensure license and permit applicants would not have to retake courses and to allow any programs and courses that do not currently have approval or accreditation through one of these accrediting bodies time to do so. I don't know if we want to stop now and let you guys discuss, and then I can answer questions if you have them.
Yeah, that's fine. You could pause this. Is there any council member discussion?
Miyazaki, I think at the time when this was the topics were being thrown about and the proposal came about, that after further research on this topic, it does seem that it's not going to be a viable option because for CODA approved programs, it's very rigorous application, and also not all programs are going to qualify for it, as well as the expense to get accreditation and the annual fee, which is doubled during the time of the site visit. Let's see, and also with the Bureau for Private Post-Secondary Education, that can range from anywhere between $750 to $5,000 to approve programs, and that would approve courses, but CODA would not approve standalone courses, it only approves programs. And let's see. And also for the Western Association of Schools and Colleges and the ACCJC, those are both for community college education or up. And with those also come a range of California law that has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion, student learning outcomes that are required, regular substantive interaction for online courses, and also accessibility issues with online courses too as well. And those are all things that some community colleges even might struggle with, and it would be even more difficult for other organizations to adopt these policies. Thank you.
Fowler?
I concur with Ms. Miyazaki by making even the existing approved courses having to be accredited by one of those CODA, those other options. It's basically going to cause pretty much the elimination of most of the educational programs for dental assisting that's out there, which would definitely cause an access to care issue. But I also am very empathetic with the struggles that the dental board is going through. So this is a real issue. Yes, it's disheartening to hear that the educational programs out there, there's so many that are non-compliant. And there's also staffing issues to be able to regulate all these different institutions. So I would love to do some brainstorming on how we could get, maybe call on educators out there, subject matter experts, what we can do to evaluate the existing programs that we do have and also manage this. I mean, we would love to be code approved because that would fix the reciprocity issue that we have in California. So now we're fixing it so we can have assistants from out of state come to California, but there is no reciprocity going the other way because unless you come from a code approved school, you can't go the other way. So I would love to see that though happen. Anybody else have anything?
Miyazaki?
I just also wanted to mention that some of the things that could be considered from other states, they consider that allied health students are very valuable to the workforce and will go into the workforce. So other states do lobby with their legislation to have their, the colleges that have allied health students, their colleges are paid more per student if they're an allied health student. And that way in the community colleges, they're eager to have a dental hygiene and dental assisting program, RadTech program, because they're paid, and it's not, that's a program that doesn't run in the red. The other thing I also wanted to mention is that with the institutions in the accrediting bodies that are mentioned in the legislative proposal, or the CDA exam won't cover California law too as well. So that's something that's not going to be included, although in the chairside exam for DAMB CDA, there is some ethical dilemma questions, but California laws won't be addressed in any of those items in the proposal.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any other further council member discussion?
I believe that we should allow time for stakeholders and interested parties to provide testimony on the possible changes. The revisions and accreditation regulations should be sent to committee, and I agree and concur with Fowler and Miyazaki that there should be discussion and input from the stakeholders prior to decision being made.
I agree. Okay, thank you. Is there any further council member discussion? Any public comments?
Before we go to public comment, I do want to make one more comment.
Please.
Board staff understand that this proposal may require additional discussion, and we are actually very interested in continuing conversations with the working group. We also feel that it may be time to look at the dental assisting as a whole and take this as an opportunity to discuss some of the many issues facing this workforce, such as reciprocity, the permitted duties of unlicensed dental assistants and registered dental assistants, access to education, consumer protection in relation to education and unlicensed practice. And we're requesting actually to send this back to the working group and to set up future meetings with the working group and any interested stakeholders to discuss these issues and topics and to come up with legislative proposals to bring back to the DAC and board that address these lingering issues.
Thank you. Is there any public comments? Oh. Wait, excuse me 1 second. We have one further council member.
I would definitely support Member Olagi, us having the working group. This is a bigger discussion. And regardless, we really need to look at capacity-wise, it's not sustainable in the next 3 to 4 years. So we do need to bring conversations, stakeholders, and all of us in to have conversations about this. My questions would be in our current, like, I would like the working group to look at, but in current state, how many of our DA programs would even fall into these categories possibly to see? Because do we know those numbers today, or does anybody really know those firm off the top of their head? Is there a percentage, whether it's 25, 15, that would fall into one of these accredited bodies already? It's a start to the 100% of DA schools. So that is my ask. And then my question is, will the working group remain the same 2 DAC members, or is there open discussion on looking at possibly now looking at the 2 working group board members being 2 other individuals, or 1 the same and possibly someone else?
Christy Bell, Assistant Executive Officer. Right now, we're anticipating the same working group participating since they've been involved to this point and done a lot of the research. But we will be reaching out for additional comment and feedback to take into consideration.
And just to comment on one of your questions, I think this obviously is a much bigger discussion. And just so you are all aware that the RDA programs that are applying aren't all just institutions anymore. They could be just a standalone person who wants to provide the course. And a lot of them are not RDA programs, but are offering all of the standalone courses, kind of stacking them to a unlicensed DA program. And so there may be some of those that wouldn't fall into one of these categories, but they could. So that's where BPPE would come in. They do have certain exemptions, but so I guess just to say, it does require more of a conversation, but I think that the entities that we've listed do offer the support and guidance we're looking for as far as making sure they're a valuable program. And they may have to make some adjustments, though, to be able to obtain the approval. So.
Miyazaki?
I just also want to mention that in the past, all community colleges were CODA accredited, but now there are several community colleges that have dropped their CODA accreditation, and there's been one that just dropped theirs fairly recently. It's not mandatory for community colleges, and it's sort of like the ADA seal of approval. You can have it, but you don't have it, have to have it.
Okay, we're going to move to public comment.
Good morning, Melody Randolph, representing the Dental Assisting Alliance. And we would agree with going back to a working group. We completely understand the issues at hand in this agenda item. We are discouraged by the results of the reevaluations and the problems that are happening. So we completely understand the problem, and we would love to, as a group, the Alliance, participate in any type of discussions and working group to solve these issues. Just to additionally say about the CODA accreditation, our research shows there are 18 colleges in California that are CODA accredited out of the 90-some RDA approved programs. So that's less than a fifth, or approximately a fifth. It costs $20,000 for the initial application fee to apply to be CODA accredited. And that's not including all the other costs of doing the curriculum and preparing for a site visit and all of that. We're talking, $100,000 or more for these programs to incur to become a CODA accredited, and they're just not going to. The courses, the problem with Danby certification, we want to make sure we point out is that even though they have the certifications for X-ray, chronopolish, and sealants, it is a written exam only. There is no lab or clinical requirement to get these certifications. So that means, for example, we changed the chronopolish from an RDA to a DA duty this year. That means that a DA then could take a written exam on chronopolish, never get any training or skills in actually chronopolishing. They would then get a certificate from Danby, or they pass the Danby written exam and can go chronopolish with no training. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I think we all see the problems with this, but again, we reiterate, we're happy to participate in a work group. Thank you very much.
Sherry Becker with the Alliance. I concur with Melody Randolph's comments and also with Tina Valerie's suggestion on the work group. And yes, we would be more than happy to assist in any way that we can.
Good morning, Tuka Zokai with the California Dental Association. I agree with a lot of what has been shared, that this is a starting point for a larger conversation, and would also be very interested in a working group to be formed to discuss this further. One of the major concerns is programs closing if there is no other affordable option, looking at CODA, BPPE, and WSCUC as options. There's a concern about not having a similar option in rigor and affordability, but those are the two items we would really like to see the work group focus on, is the rigor and the affordability. So we don't see a swath of program closures. And just a couple of questions on the lift of switching to BPPE versus the DBC, the dental board continuing. And if the board has considered expanding appropriate settings of intramural sites for clinical and lab requirements. I can send a letter after the meeting just specifying those few things for the ideally working group to explore.
Bruce Witcher, CDA, basically seconding Tuka's comments here. The states that accept only graduates of CODA-approved programs and there are quite a number, they have severe shortages of dental assistants, so I don't think we really want to go there. These other pathways all have pros and cons, and so I think evaluating them through a larger conversation would be helpful. With respect to Danby programs, although they don't offer hands-on clinical training, that is still a requirement, I believe, that's covered in their application. With the infection control course, you have the option of taking a proctored exam, where it's a video proctored, or it's completing the exam in a secure environment. With the radiation safety course, that it can also be taken as a proctored exam. So I think it's selling those courses short a little bit to say that there's no clinical component at all. I think that may be part of the application requirements. And because this is how maybe distance learning could be further explored and included as an option, because there is this capability for proctoring the exam. So thank you.
Is there any second for our public comments? Would anyone like to make a motion to have the working group? Don't need it? Okay. All right.
Miyazaki, I'd like to make a motion. Before I make a motion, I'd like to address the proctored exam. And I believe the proctored exams are giving the testing company access to the student's microphone and camera to see while they're taking the test, whether they're talking or their eyes are shifting around to see if they're cheating on the exam while they're taking it on their computer at home. So I believe that's what they meant by proctored exam. I would like to make a motion, but I believe Tina Valerie has the language for the motion.
You don't need a motion to send it back to the working group. I think the information that council has discussed today is sufficient to send back to the working group to have discussions with stakeholders. I think the goal is to keep something moving forward now. So hopefully the working group can have 3 or 4 stakeholder meetings. I think the idea is the board would send out a listserv notice to everyone who signed up for that notice about the dates and times of stakeholder meetings. The point of having a working group, so it's a 2-member group, to make it more efficient to hold these meetings as the working group members are available, and receive as much information as possible to start the process of preparing a legislative proposal to resolve a lot of these issues. We're hoping to have more language for the council's review at the August meeting, if possible. So we're just trying to keep the foot on the pedal to keep this moving forward, because the board is really experiencing some significant issues with continuing this approval program, as well as the concerns raised today with respect to the education the students are actually receiving. We want to make sure that they're properly prepared to provide dental services to patients in California. So you don't need a motion. If the council needs additional information as to guidance on the stakeholder meetings, you can request that, but it sounds like you have a lot to work with already.
Thank you. And we're going to go ahead and go to our next agenda item. So we're going to move on to agenda item number 9, update, discussion, and possible recommendation to the board on legislation. I'm going to ask Brian Nelson, Legislative and Regulatory Specialist, to present this agenda item.
How about now? That's good surround sound there. And I will respond to just about anything, but for the record, it's Brant Nelson. But you can say whatever you like. So I will be presenting agenda item number 9, starting on page 53 of your meeting materials. However, there was a supplement issued for item number 9, and I believe we put copies by the door. So if you didn't stop by and get a copy of agenda item 9, please help yourself, because we updated the memo. So this concerns Assembly Bill 873 with Assemblymember Alanis, and I'm just going to kind of provide a quick background. The board and the council's recommendation at the February meeting, we basically set application review fees for 3 new dental assistant courses established in SB 1453, the board's sunset bill. On February 19th, 2025, AB 873 was introduced to resolve concerns of the California Dental Association with the dental assistant infection control course requirements in BPC section 1750. That bill also would repeal BPC section 1755, the new infection control course, to resolve the implementation issues raised by board staff. On April 9th, 2025, AB 873 was amended in the Assembly Business and Professions Committee, and among other things, would add new fees in BPC section 1725, and basically for review of approval of application and reevaluation to offer courses in interim therapeutic restorations and radiographic decision-making, often referred to as ITR, RDM, the radiation safety, and an infection control course. AB 873 currently is on suspense file in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. And so what happens in the Assembly is when a bill reaches a certain threshold of potentially costing money, it automatically gets referred. And so what we think is going to happen, we don't know for sure, but what is most likely to happen is the bill will come out of suspense and survive. And So as we started to look at, implementing these 3 new courses, we had to kind of do an evaluation and see, well, what is this going to cost to review all of these courses? So it looks like what happened was we haven't actually, since 2017, increased the fees that we usually charge. Setting the course application fees in statute avoids significant delay otherwise experienced when the board has to do it in regulation, which can take a long time. So the April 9th, 2025 amendments to BPC Section 1725 authorized the course fees in an amount not to exceed $300, which would require the actual fees to be set in regulation, further delaying implementation. In addition, the Assembly Appropriations Committee analysis basically looked at this, and they had a note that said if the board charged the maximum fee of $300 to review an application, the board would experience a revenue increase of $52,000 per year, which would not cover the total yearly costs associated with the workload. So in order to determine if, what exactly is the workload, board staff conducted a thorough analysis. We looked at what it would cost to put these courses through the evaluation that they would require. They're very sophisticated courses. They require lots of compliance. And to do that, we determined that there would be a fee per course. So we kind of broke down the analysis, but so the fee per course for the ITR and RDM would be $7,300, and the infection control course to implement that would be $3,827. And that's just an estimate. And those fees are, when you first see them, you're like, good gosh. However, if you look at a lot of what's charged in the market now to do the review of these kinds of things, there's often an initial accreditation that these programs have to go into, and that can cost $5,000 to $15,000 initially. There's also annual fees associated with that of $2,000 to $10,000 annually. And what we're looking at here is charging these fees per course for the providers of the course. And that would be like, every 7 years, we look at them and see, okay, checking in, making sure we're doing the site inspection, showing up, traveling. There's a lot of staff time and work involved in doing this. And it does take resources to do it, to drive to these locations, do the reviews, make sure they're compliant. So that's why the cost estimates are so high. So this legislative proposal that we are presenting today would need to be presented to Assemblymember Alanis and the CDA for consideration. And board staff also notes the regulatory course fees will need to be reviewed for potential increases as well. So as far as action requested, the council is asked to consider the proposed legislative amendments. If the council agrees with the recommendation to amend AB 873 to set the dental assistant course fees, the council is asked to make one of the following motions. Option 1, move to recommend to the board the legislative proposal in attachment 1 for submission to amend Business and Professions Code Section 1725. Or option 2, we can make changes and submit that. And option 3 is no action if the council wishes to not recommend a motion. And of course, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Christy Bell, Assistant Executive Officer. I just wanted to add to that. So the fees that we provided in the materials did not include the travel costs that would be required to go to these site visits, which is why Mr. Nelson had different numbers that he was speaking to. And then the reason why there's a difference between the 2 courses is one is a virtual course, so there's no requirement for us to go out and visit the location.
Okay, so if the council is reviewing the legislative proposal for a potential motion, we need to take a look at the actual language that the staff is proposing. It's page 2 of the legislative proposal language. This is for AB 873. Proposed amendments to Business and Professions Code Section 1725. You're looking for subdivision L. So right now, the language in AB 873 sets that the amount that could be charged for ITR, RDM, radiation safety, and infection control courses shall not exceed $300. We need that language stricken, and we need the fee to be set for ITR and RDM and radiation safety courses. Should that be 7330? We need that amount set at $7,330. And then add a new subdivision M to set the course fee for infection control. This is the electronic version at $3,830. We think that using these numbers, that would resolve the concern raised in the Assembly Appropriations Committee that the $300 currently in the bill would not cover the cost to administer the program. One other thing that the council may want to propose to the board is right now the bill contains updates to the infection control course in Business and Professions Code Section 1755. In the Assembly Business and Professions Code Committee, or Business and Professions Committee, they added at the board's request a new subdivision G that would limit the use of the infection control course with the electronic delivery and no clinical instruction to dental assistants. And that course could not be used for RDA or RDAEF licensure or other dental assisting permits. We requested that the Assembly B&P Committee resolve the issue that the board proposed limiting the use of that course, while CDA, the sponsor of the bill, believes that that course should be available to all. There should be no restriction on it. CDA has submitted a letter providing arguments in support of that change so that that course would be available to all. So the board requested that the committee resolve the disagreement between the board and CDA, and the committee effectively did resolve that by adding new subdivision G to limit the use of the electronic infection control course to dental assistants who are unlicensed. However, with the benefit of the written arguments provided by CDA, the council may want to recommend to the board a change either to strike subdivision G from BPC section 1755 or no change, which would make it so RDA, RDAEF licensure, and dental assisting permits, you would need to take the clinical instruction of infection control for the license and permit.
Is there any board comments, council member comments? Miyazaki?
So just for clarification, that the two options are keep subdivision G, which means that the electronic version would be available to all unlicensed RDA and RDAFs, or the council could recommend to keep subdivision G, which would recommend the 2-hour clinical lab for RDAs and RDAFs.
So keeping subdivision G that's currently in the bill would limit the use of the electronic infection control removing subdivision G, which is the request of CDA, would mean everybody could take the electronic infection control with no clinical instruction or licensure or permitting.
Fowler?
Isn't the infection control, the hands-on component embedded into RDA programs now? So why would they need to take the hands-on? And you have to be a licensed RDA before you can be an EF. So why would they need the hands-on component for infection control?
If I may address that, I believe that not all work experience or on-the-job dental assistants take an educational program, and there is a large majority of work experience and on-the-job training dental assistants. So they would only take the infection control, corneal polishing, and sealants and the Dental Practice Act. They don't go through a program where they have the hands-on course.
Fowler, again.
Fowler.
I know some programs have it embedded, the 8-hour, and some don't. So basically, whether you had it while you went through the program, the existing RDA program, and then applied for your licensure, you'd still have to retake it again?
Miyazaki?
So on-the-job trained dental assistants work in a dental office, do 15 months or 50 hours and can apply. They don't have to go through a program.
Oh, okay, so I see what you're saying. You're talking just for the work experience pathway.
Is there any public comments?
Melody Randolph, representing the Alliance. On this specific issue about the lab component, it is setting a precedent that, just to clarify this issue, some people become an RDA through an RDA-approved program. They get the hands-on training for infection control. But if you take out the hands-on training for infection control for the work experience or on-the-job train, you're setting a precedent for two different. Some would have the hands-on training, some wouldn't, for the RDA. So that is not a good precedent to set two different pathways in a topic for such as this. So that we can sympathize with the challenges associated with having it completed before a new employee can start working in areas of potential contamination. So I'm talking here about the deadline for completing the infection control. This education training is critical to the safety of all patients in California. And we understand that CDA is willing to or wants to put in a 90-day time limit to have the course done within 90 days of their first day of employment. But we respectfully request that the dental board take a position of 30 days at the most. That's plenty of time for people to take this course. We would like to address a couple of the issues that are presented in CDA's letter. They make reference to the fact that there has to be OSHA training. We'd like to remind everybody that OSHA training is for the protection of the employee, whereas the 8-hour infection control course by the dental board would be for the protection of patients. So there are many things that are not in OSHA training that are required in the dental board 8-hour infection control course, such as the categorization of instruments of critical, semi-critical, and non-critical, how to process those instruments, the difference between them. There is not an OSHA because OSHA is information to protect the employee. So that is a critical difference. Even though there's some overlap in the courses. They're for two totally different purposes. On the modality, requiring individuals who have already completed the infection control course virtually to retake it in person. So that's one of the things that they mentioned in their letter, was that it's redundant to have to retake it. But our argument is, well, if that's the case, why do licensed individuals have to retake an infection control class every 2 years to maintain their license? There's a reason why we have to retake it, to refresh our memories, to make sure we're following proper infection control. So their argument that it's redundant doesn't make any sense, because we all have to take it multiple times. And there are other things, I know I'm running out of time, there are other things in their letter that we have concerns with, and are happy to provide our written comments. Thank you.
Sherry Becker with the Alliance, and I mirror and support Melody's comments as well.
Dr. Loren?
Good morning again. I'm really like to hear your comments, everybody's comments before myself commenting, and because I understand different perspectives, I get to hear different perspectives. But and I think it's really, really important to have infection control. But I do think it's redundant to have 2 courses. I don't think it's feasible to have a practical part of this infection control in regard to access to care. I mean, there are areas out there where dental assistants are not going to be able to have these courses available. I think it's very difficult as a dentist. For me, for example, have a dental assistant only 30 days to get this done. I mean, it's really, really not feasible as an employer. And I am the supervisor. I am the supervisor of their practice. I see what they're doing. I don't want my patients to be to go through infection control issues. I mean, I'm supervising them constantly, and I think every dentist in California is also basically trying to do the same. I know you may say there isn't, and I agree. I agree, but the dental assistant already has had a lot of training before that with the 8-hour infection control that they take prior, then do it again, and now you have to have a practical component that is probably not going to be available. We're listening to all these situations with the courses out there that they're not complying. So honestly, I really don't think having another 8-hour infection control course and the 30-day limit is not feasible for dentistry. It really isn't. We're having so many issues in our office. I just really want you to think about that part. And every dentist is trying to do the best they can in their office. I really believe so. And we are giving these OSHA courses, we're giving the infection control, we're taking them to the conventions. My staff is going to be here for infection control. I mean, what else can we do? I mean, really, honestly, 30 days is not enough time. So that's just my suggestion, to keep it at 3 months, at least 3 months after employment.
Epps Robbins. I do agree with a portion of what you're saying, Dr. Loren. My concern is that when we continue to move the gauge of the dates and the time frame for these programs or for these assistants to accomplish their 30-day time period for this infection control, then it's 90 days. I think 30 days is sufficient. I don't see why it should be extended out to 3 months for the 90 days when there's available programs. And I think this will facilitate those programs that are out there to getting these individuals to be more diligent in their timeframes. I think the longer a period, it could be lost in translation or lost in the tracking of these individuals. And they're working on patients daily, immediately. And I don't think that they should have that time period of that 90 days to figure out. You may lose that retention of that employee. And now they've already worked on a patient. Infection control is so necessary and so validated that if we move and continue to move the gauge for 3 months and beyond that, That's almost a working 90-day period of retention for a job. But we're letting that employee work on that patient day one. So we have to keep that benefact in hindsight, or we have to keep it actually in frontal. Because until we know that they come in with all of their requirements, until we know that their ability is to work on these patients, and we need to give them a time frame that I do think is manageable in 30 days. I don't see that 90 days should be extended. Again, because I'm my concern, I'm a working assistant as well. I'm now managerial, but I see the type of candidates that I hire. And my concern is when I walk through my office or I see it and I see that they're not doing that infection control, or they're not having those, the gloves that they're supposed to have. And instead of using utility gloves, they're using regular latex gloves or non-latex gloves or nitrile gloves. This is not what infection control is about. We want to make sure that the safety of our patients is up front and most. People are learning job skills. They're trying to get on the job. They're trying to impress that they keep that job. They're not really doing the infection control that they need to. And this is the reason why we have these standards in place. If we don't take this in advisement and don't give it a time frame, I do think that it's going to be lost. It's already so fluent in offices when you see it, and people are not being trained properly by programs. They're being trained by succeeding employees. Someone else is training them and say, oh, well, you don't need this. Oh, you could spray this, you could wipe this. So if they're not so fluent and they're not being trained properly, where do we stop it? So it has to be a stopping point to where we throw it back to the programs. We enforce the programs to do this. We make sure that we give that employee a time frame. And if we continue to move it, they get confused. They don't know, is it 30 days? Is it 90 days? Is it 60 days? Is it a year? And we're moving so many other components with what the things that they need to do in different timeframes. This is one I think we need to stay stuck on and make sure that they understand you're working on a patient. You're cross-contamination. They don't understand taking a pen from the back to the front. They don't think that taking a chart from, if they're using a slash chart system and slash electronic, and they take this dirty chart and they give it to the front office. They're not wiping it down. They're not taking the insert out. They're not handing it. I see it in my office daily and I'm constantly stop, don't, what are you doing? And I don't want to be that micromanager. I want it to go back to these programs. I want these programs to do their due diligence, train these individuals, give them a time period as you're bringing them and onboarding them. They have onboarding requirements, and this should be one of them, that they standard to that 30-day. Dr. Lauren?
You know, I do agree with what you're saying, but I just lost my train of thought. I have had assistants, and many of us have had assistants that come in with all the proper training, and they just don't do it. They don't do it. They have their training with the gloves. They know they're supposed to do this. They know they're supposed to do that, and they still don't do it. So the supervising dentist is ultimately always going to be the person responsible for observing and making sure that the students do this. So we could do all kinds of training here, 48 hours, 2 weeks, whatever you want. But if the dentist does not supervise and make sure that these infection control guidelines are being performed, it doesn't make sense for you to be taking all these hundreds of hours courses. So I do believe their infection control is extremely important, but all these courses, I mean, it's just affecting access to care and many, many other issues. So I don't know how we could control this. Is the dental board reaching out to the new unlicensed dentists to make sure before they're hired, or they're already 8-hour infection control was already taken? We're not going to be doing that. We're not going to be supervising every office to make sure they did it. So it's ultimately the dentist who's going to take control and supervise. That's just my take on this. And I do respectfully ask that we allow the dentist at least 30 days because he's still in charge of whatever happens in his office.
Dr. Lerner, I do agree. Again, that 30-day period, and I do understand your concern of what people are coming in with and having to have that supervising dentist. A lot of offices do now have what they consider clinical supervisors or lead RDAs. So when you have, depending on the size of the practice, if they have those, that falls on that lead or to manage that staffing and to ensure that that staffing is keeping the protocols. We all know when you go in an office, you have all these books that say, we're checking this off, we're cleaning these lines, we're doing this. We have what we call a maintenance list. This is also a part of the culture of how are we training our new onboarders? And that's my concern. It's not so much for the people who come in with their packets or come in with what they're saying, oh, okay, I took an 8-hour infection control course, but how are we monitoring that? If we don't give it a guideline from a time span of a period of a timeline, then we're going to lose it. That's just my concern, that it's going to be too fluent and it's not going to be managed correctly, or they're going to be confused on the time period that they have to be able to obtain these type of courses. And there's a lot of courses, but unfortunately, that's what we do to get where we're at. So these courses cannot be shined away or banished or dismantled in order to make it more effective to have more staff and to have obtained staff quicker. We still need to have our core to get that good staff, because I wouldn't want to hire quickly and then have someone that's not in working condition to be out there. So that's when we have to take our time period to hire the correct staff and not be in such a rush of how many courses are they taking, where is it at. The courses are needed, and unfortunately, this is what I think that what's really needed in that 30-day period. I think it's enough. Miyazaki?
I just want to mention, as a perspective, being an educator and visiting many externship offices, temping in many offices during the summer when I was not under contract, and listening to the infection control providers and what their students tell them, that there are many dentists who do their due diligence, and we're so great that they are, and grateful that they do that. But again, the dental assistants often have the burden of training the dental assistants, although the dentist is the one who supervises and is ultimately in charge. However, I mean, just recently, we've had a student go out to an office where they take the head cover and they turn it around after the first patient, they turn it inside out after the first patient, and offices that still cold sterile their saliva ejectors and the HVE plastic tips that are for one use only. Students who take infection control classes, there are 2 dental assistants from an office. They worked with one assistant worked with the dentist, took their gloves off, turned them inside out. Then the second assistant came along a little bit later to finish the procedure and put her hands inside those gloves and finish the procedure using 1 pair of gloves. We've had students who have graduated from our program temping in an office where they are instructed by the dental assistant to turn on the autoclave by turning the timer, but not turning the autoclave on. And she was asked how long she'd been doing that. She'd been trained by the former dental assistant, and it was 2.5 years. She was just turning on the timer for the autoclave. So I believe that, again, we do need to have a time limit on the infection control class. I agree that 30 days would be reasonable. Our Santa Clara Dental Society offers the course every 30 days through the Dental Society, and maybe other dental societies could follow the same route. I know that they're not always very close, but I think that 30 days is ample time to take a course. Thank you.
Gerlach, I agree with Miyazaki and Deandra Epstein.
The long one, Epps Robbins.
Epps Robbins.
Any further discussion? Oh, Dr. Smith?
Smith, I agree that, of course, all personnel working with patients should definitely go through proper training. I think we're losing sight of the bigger questions here. 2 different things on the table as far as what I'm seeing is the time limit, that they should have some proper training, being 30 days, 90 days, 120 I've heard. And then the other bigger picture is whether we decide to have that unlicensed DA only do a virtual training versus virtual and hands-on, which some believe is a repeat that they're going to get through the OSHA. And I thoroughly believe the unlicensed dental assistant should have at minimum, the virtual training, and I believe that's probably enough in a lot of areas when they're unlicensed.
I would second that. Councilmember Smith, yes, I agree. The virtual one can be leveraged. We're seeing a lot of different ways of how virtual education is being leveraged in all types of professions. So, and I do agree, this is two different conversations, the course and the days, and we need to keep that in mind here. So where do we fall in our conversations of how it's administered, the 8-hour infection, and then the days?
Any further council member comments?
To be clear, the issue with 1755, it's not changing the way unlicensed dental assistants would take the electronic infection control course. That's already in the law right now, as of last year, or January 1. The issue is whether or not somebody who already took the electronic version has to go back and take an 8-hour with clinical instruction to become an RDA or get a DSA or OA permit. That's the issue. So unlicensed dental assistants will now have this virtual option, well, pending the board's ability to implement it based upon charging fees. We've got to get that in the statute. But I want to be clear that it's about licensure and permitting with that clinical instruction component. And so we've got the time limit in 1750 subdivision C, whether or not the council wants to recommend the board request the 90 days be moved down to 30. As a reminder, as of January 1, the infection control course is required on day 1 when there's exposure to infectious material. The legislature did that last year, moving it from the 120 days to as soon as you're potentially exposed to infectious material, you have to have that course in order to do that. So CDA has proposed moving that immediate requirement to 90 days from employment. The Alliance wants 30 days at minimum. The board has stayed out of this fight on AB 873. They have not provided any position on changes to 1750. It sounds like the council may be wanting to support or oppose changes to 1750 subdivision C. Please take a look at 1755 subdivision G to see if that should be removed or stay in the bill. And we really need changes to Business and Professions Code Section 1725 to set the fees for ITR, RDM, radiation safety, and infection control. So one person could make one motion to address these 3 issues, and then the entire council can vote on it after we get public comment. And, you know, if you can keep doing motions until something is successful. But, you know, hearing the comments that the council has made, maybe there's a preference for one position or another. But one council member can make one motion with these 3 components in it.
So can I get clarification? So 1750, 17C is the time limit. That's 1715, 17C. 1725 is the fees, and 1755 subdivision G is the unlicensed versus RDA. Okay. I'd like to make a motion. So for 1750 subdivision 17C, I would recommend, I make a motion for the time limit to be 30 days, within 30 days of employment. 1725, I would like to make a motion to accept the recommended fees. 1755 subdivision G, I would not be in support of the CDA recommendation and would move to keep the law the same as the unlicensed dental assistant taking only the online version, with the RDA and RDAF being required to take the 2-hour lab component version.
Okay, can I clarify that? All right. The motion is to propose amendments to Assembly Bill 873 to the board to recommend to the legislature amending Business and Professions Code 1750 Subdivision C to change 90 days to 30 days as the infection control requirement for dental assistants, amending Business and Professions Code 1725 Subdivision M to set an ITR, RDM, and radiation safety course fee in the amount of $7,330 and adding new subdivision, no, it's L. L is ITR, RDM, radiation safety, and adding new subdivision M to set the infection control course in 1755, set that fee at $3,830, and make no changes to Business and Professions Code Section 1755, which would maintain a current subdivision G.
Epps Robbins, second. Is there any public comments? You have one?
Thank you. Good morning, council members. This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer of the Dental Hygiene Board. We did have some concerns with this bill, AB 873, particularly with the infection control course requirement. And what we did was at our March 2025 board meeting, my board voted to submit a letter of opposition to the legislature on the amendments of the statutory language, specifically BPC 1750C, specifically pertaining to the infection control course. The letter was submitted to the legislature in early April. We believe that the existing statutory language where the infection control course needs to be completed prior to starting employment is fine. Since it pertains to the unlicensed DA, this person is unlicensed, untrained, and uneducated, at least in the dental realm, to participate with patient care for up to 90 days without any IC training. And as you all know, as practitioners, all it takes is one incident to hit the headlines, and you're not in a good position there. We believe this compromises consumer protection and patient safety, so we oppose the amendments to the statutory language and hope it's amended soon to correct those what we feel are deficiencies. Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Hello, my name is Joanne Pacheco, and I am representing myself as a previous unlicensed dental assistant, RDA, current RDH, and program director and longtime educator. I am in opposition of two separate courses for the RDA and unlicensed dental assistant. Having been an educator for a long time, I believe the laboratory component for both should be in person.
Good morning, Tukas Okai from California Dental Association. Thank you so much for all the input on this legislation. We've seen a lot of progress and discussion. I just want to recognize the work that's gone into this. We have a couple of concerns about the current motion. The first is the time limit proposal for within 30 days. So prior to 2025, it was 120 days of continuous employment and then 1 year to complete the course. So we're talking infection control and the importance of it. We recognize that, that timeline is an extremely long time with only having the OSHA training course. That is still a significant training course, but not enough to meet the needs of the, unique dental office needs. However, this proposal reduces that by 9 months. So it's gone from, again, 120 days of continuous employment and a year to complete. And this proposal will move that to 90 days. We've seen a surge of dental offices having extreme difficulty, especially in rural areas, to meet this requirement before exposure to blood and saliva. However, the OSHA course is required. They've had significant challenges in meeting this because this currently isn't available online. We hope that there's going to be progress and eventually there will be an appropriate online course, which brings us to the second part of this motion where the request to keep 1755 subsection G, we would actually recommend to strike that because if this course is available online, it should meet the rigor, it should meet the needs of the 8-hour infection control course, be it online with distance learning or in person. So we think that taking that course again would be redundant. There's, as our letter specifies, there's really no additional practical experience in clinical setting that would make a difference if it were to be in person versus online. And we would want identical curriculum across formats. Oh, I think that's time.
Bruce Witcher, CDA, practicing dentist. Just speaking in support of CDA's comments on this, you're taking a requirement that was 120 days plus 1 year and moving it all the way back to 90 days. That's a pretty significant change. And I really think that's going to be sufficient. But again, I've had the experience recently of having a volunteer come in and want to work in my free clinic where we really need the help. I cannot find a course for her to go take. She lost interest and went on and sought employment elsewhere because of the hurdles that were set up to keep me from hiring her. Even though we could provide her with some basic, obviously we would have to provide her with, as part of her onboarding, it's a requirement of our institution to provide her with infection control training. We have the written infection control plan. It has to be reviewed and signed off on by the supervising dentist. So I'm certainly not going to let her do anything that isn't supervised at this point because she's a new hire. With respect to the fee increases, we understand the need for the board to recover their costs. But I would just ask that maybe you look at why a site visit is required for the ITR and the radiation safety courses. Based on the statute, I don't see that that's really a necessary requirement. So that is a big component of the cost because of all the travel involved and everything. So maybe just take a look at that again and clarify why that needs to be a site visited type of a program. I could see for RDA programs, the site visit obviously is important, but for the courses, I think that's a little more of a question mark. So thank you.
Hi, my name's Amanda. Hi, my name's Amanda. I represent Central California Dental Academy. We're in Bakersfield, California. We train this course and we offer it to the outside rural areas. So I find that we don't have problems getting this course offered to people who have less access because we're centrally located and there's a lot of other schools that offer this. I train this class at least once or more a month. What I find is that a lot of staff don't know how to even don their PPE, and infection control is the foundation of dentistry. So if you watch a video, you're gonna have a different view than I might have on how to put your PPE on or how to clean an operatory. I trained staff that have been in the office as unlicensed dental assistants for even 10 years, and they've been doing their job wrong. So it enlightens them on how to properly clean an operatory and how to properly don their PPE. Even 30 days of working in an office, learning bad habits from other staff members puts patients at risk and the employee at risk. So I think that having this, I thought that you guys moving it to being trained before you even step foot in an office was the best thing that ever happened to infection control. Taking that away leaves patients subject to being, treated by people who aren't really aware of how to even put on their PPE properly. Not only that, I have staff members. I just had a student last week who told me her dentist has her wash her gloves and wear one pair a day. So they don't even know because they're unlicensed. They're trained off the street. If they're being trained under somebody who has no idea of what infection control is, then that's their bad habits they're going to pick up too. So my suggestion is to keep the laboratory component.
Good morning. Excuse me, Sherry Becker representing Sherry Becker. Just as a reminder, we've had an infection control regulation in place for the unlicensed dental assistants since 2010. It's been 15 years that they've been able to take this course, and as reminded, they had 120 days plus 12 months to take the course. So the fact that we're requiring for patient safety that this be looked at and reviewed and revisited, to me is a little dumbfounding. And as far as the lab component goes, I think that goes to be self-explanatory, that we are watering down our skills for dental assistants and not requiring certain education. And we hear from the dentists that they want educated and well-trained staff when we are cutting down educational requirements and skill opportunities for them to be trained. So think about if we were drivers and we're wanting to learn how to drive and we say, just watch the video and now you can get behind the wheel.
Thank you. Board staff, please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item.
This is Marilla Teran. I will now call the roll. Epps Robbins,
Epps Robbins, aye.
Fowler,
Fowler, aye.
Gerlach,
Gerlach, aye.
Loren,
No.
Miyazaki,
Miyazaki, aye.
Alagi,
Olagi, no.
Smith,
Smith, no.
the motion passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 10, discussion and possible recommendation to the board on legislative proposal to amend BPC Division 2. My apologies. So we've tabled number 10, so we're going to actually move on to item number 11. So we will now move on to agenda number 11, discussion and possible recommendations to the board on legislative proposal to amend BPC sections 1753 and 1753.5 regarding authorized duties and procedures of registered dental assistants and extended functions. I'm going to ask Ms. Valeri, to present the agenda item.
Good morning again. I'm Tina Valerie, Chief of Dental Assisting and License and Program Compliance. I'm presenting agenda item 11, which begins on page 57 of your meeting materials and discusses concerns regarding the allowable duties of registered dental assistants in extended functions and a legislative proposal to resolve those concerns. As of January 1st, 2025, SB 1453 revised the duties that can be performed by RDA-EFs under Business and Professions Code Section 1753.5. Two of the major changes were the removal of polish and contour existing amalgam restorations and perform post, core, and build-up procedures in conjunction with direct and indirect restorations. Board staff believe that polish and contour existing amalgam restorations may have been removed in error in the amendment process of SB 1453. Board staff believe this is a specialized duty that requires specific training and that it should be reinserted on the list of allowable duties for RDAEFs licensed after January 1st, 2010. We have included attachment 1 in your meeting materials, which is a legislative proposal to amend Business and Professions Code Section 1753.5 to add polish and contour existing amalgam restorations back into this section. We have also realized that the list of duties set forth in Business and Professions Code 1753 that may only be performed by RDAEFs licensed prior to January 1st, 2010, after completion of a board-approved course in those duties, was not updated to reflect the new RDAEF duties added and renumbered in the amendments to Business and Professions Code 1753.5. And those were made by SB 1453. Board staff are recommending Business and Professions Code Section 1753, subdivision A3B, be amended to require an RDAEF licensed prior to January 1st, 2010 to successfully complete a board-approved course in the updated duties listed on pages 59 and 60 of your meeting materials. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is there any council member discussion? Dr. Loren?
Hello again. Yeah, I had a question about I believe, the issue with the amalgam polishing might have been intentionally removed, I believe, because there's another line here that says place contour finish and adjust all direct restorations. Direct restorations can be composite or amalgam, and it already includes the finish and adjust. Why would you think it was unintentionally removed? I don't understand, because this other number 9 would cover that, would cover the amalgam polishing. I would think. I mean, I'd like to hear from other people, but I would think it covers the same thing.
Fowler?
Fowler here. So finishing and adjusting and placing permanent or direct restorations for composites, of course, as soon as we place them, we finish them. But amalgams, it's almost a separate procedure because it takes 24 hours afterwards to actually bring them back and just focus on polishing the amalgams. So that's why it was added back in.
Yes, yes, I do understand that, but it would be I think it would be covered under the same number 9. You can still come back and polish it later. I mean, yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe somebody else.
We're trying to be more specific with allowable duties and criteria, so people don't have to read between the lines on any, say if you're DA or RDA and all that, saying, am I allowed to do that or am I not allowed to do that? So if we're very specific, that eliminates those gray areas, and there is a lot of gray areas in allowable duties.
I agree, and this would have about 100 line items if we started looking into the gray areas, but that's okay. Just that was my comment. Thank you.
Is there any public comment? Is there a motion for this?
I motion option 1, move to recommend to the board the legislative proposal and attachment 1 for submission to the California State Legislature to amend Business Profession Code Section 1753 and 1753.5 regarding the RDAEF duties and educational requirements.
Second that motion. So are there any public comments? Thank you. Board staff, please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item.
This is Marilla Teran. I will now call the roll. Epps Robbins,
Epps Robbins, aye.
Fowler,
Fowler, aye.
Gerlach,
Gerlach, aye.
Loren,
Lorraine, no.
Miyasaki,
Miyazaki, aye.
Alagi,
Abstain.
Smith.
Smith, aye.
The motion passed.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item number 12, status update on pending regulations. I'm going to ask Mr. Nelson to present this agenda item.
Thank you. I'll be presenting agenda item 12A, and this is found on page 64 of your meeting materials. In the February meeting, the Dental Assisting Council and Dental Board approved the rulemaking to amend California Code of Regulations, Title 16, regarding applications for dentist licensure and fees. And so in the course and scope of beginning that regulatory process, I have an update that the proposed text was approved by the board. And since that time, board staff have drafted the initial rulemaking package, which includes the proposed text, the initial statement of reasons, explaining the regulation's purpose and impact. This package is now undergoing internal review by the Department of Consumer Affairs Regulatory Council and budget staff as a standard part of the regulatory process. This item is informational only and no action is requested. Thank you.
Is there any council member discussion? Are there any public comments? Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 12, discussion and possible action to recommend initiation of rulemaking to amend California Code of Regulations, CCR, Title 16, Section 1005, regarding minimum standards of infection control. I'm going to ask Mr. Nelson again to present this item agenda.
Thank you. I'll be presenting agenda item 12B, found on page 65 of your meeting materials. So the infection control language has not been updated in quite some time. And we have been working very diligently. By we, I mean the dental board staff, the dental hygiene board staff, and a lot of stakeholder comments, a lot of meticulous review of the laws pertaining to this very complex area of law. As I was working on this with the Regulatory Council, the thought occurred to me that this is probably the most important regulation that the board will actually ever do, because infection control is so important for public safety. And what I'm particularly happy with is that we have really worked together. So just in terms of the dental board's work on this, we had our working group consisting of Ms. Alagi and Kara Miyasaki, and they have been very helpful in ensuring that this language is thorough. Also, the dental hygiene board in particular, Anthony Lum and Ms. Pacheco, who actually, the president of the Dental Hygiene Board Council, who was actually worked as part of the working group at the dental board on the same regulation. So she has quite a bit of interaction with us on this. And so this has been really everyone coming together to create a very thorough regulatory language that will safeguard consumers in California. So as an update, basically what we have here in attachment 2 is our final product. And this reflects the working group's revisions to the regulatory text to resolve public concerns. And we've also attached in the meeting materials, attachment 7, the explanations for the changes made and the rationales for accepting or rejecting prior public comments submitted at the February 2025 council and board meetings. So considering the recommendations from both the board and DHBC's working groups, board staff recommends that the council consider approval of the text as set forth in attachment 2. Council members as an action, should review the proposed regulatory text and consider whether they would support the staff's recommendation to adopt attachment 2, or if there are suggested changes to the proposed text. After review, board staff requests that the council consider one of the following motions. Option 1, move to recommend to the board the proposed regulatory text in attachment 2 for approval, and recommend that the board staff submit attachment 2 to the Dental Hygiene Board of California for their review and reconsideration of their prior action on this item. So after, if the council recommends this to the board and the board approves it, it will then go to the Dental Hygiene Board and they will approve it, and we can begin the process of the regulatory action. This is very important work. I think it's very important to do it now and get it done because of the fact that these regulations have not been updated in some time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any council member discussion? Is there a motion? Fowler?
I move option number 1, which is to recommend to the board to propose, do I need to read all of that in option 1? Recommend to accept no changes in the items in attachment 2, or the documentation in attachment 2. Do I need to read that entire paragraph? Okay. Move to recommend to the board the proposed regulatory text in attachment 2 for approval, and recommend that the board staff submit attachment 2 to the Dental Hygiene Board of California for the review and reconsideration of their prior action on this item, and to obtain a consensus with this board on the guidelines. Upon receiving notice that the Dental Hygiene Board of California has approved attachment 2 and thereby reached consensus with the board, submit the text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and Business, Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review. If no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the text and the package, and set the matter for a hearing if requested. If after the 45-day public comment period, no adverse comments are received and no public hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take the steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulations as noticed for CCR Title 16, Section 1005.
Miyazaki, second.
Are there any public comments?
Sherry Becker, representing the Alliance. First of all, we want to thank everyone for the hard work on this, and we do want to keep some forward momentum, but there are just some little minor things that we would like to bring to your attention. So if we could please turn to page, in Amendment 2. So it's page 82 of the board book. It's page 3, actually, of the attachment. Oh, excuse me, wrong citing. It is page 84 of 147, page 5 of 12. And it is under section 4, letter E. Reusable protective eyewear, face shields, and visors shall be washed with soap and water, or if visibly soiled, cleaned, and disinfected between patients. We're suggesting striking the wash with soap and water as just an alternative. It doesn't make sense because you're going to clean and disinfect your safety eyewear. So why would you just wash with soap and water? Suggest striking that. Next, on page 6 of 12, under number 6, gloves, letter B at the very bottom. last sentence where it says utility gloves shall be cleaned and disinfected, or next page, sterilized in accordance with manufacturer's instructions. That's fine, but in C, following that, in C, the last sentence there, utility gloves shall be cleaned and sterilized in accordance with it's missing the disinfected. It's not congruent. B and C are not congruent. So it's missing the word disinfected in there or sterilized. I'm out of time. Okay, thank you.
Melody Randolph, representing the Alliance on page 88. Just clarification on the fourth paragraph down where it says a chemical indicator shall be used inside every sterilization package to verify. Just point of clarification, if that is intended to add an additional indicator into packages that already have their own indicator on them. This could be read that you have to do it as well, which would be redundant. So if the wording could be changed just to clarify if the package has internal and external indicators, that's sufficient. Or if we need an additional one. On page 89, third paragraph down, about the flushing the water lines, we suggest that the word after be changed to before. The purpose of flushing the water lines is to ensure that the water is as fresh as possible before working on the patient. If we do it after and then there isn't another patient for 2 or 3 hours, it's sitting stagnant. So that word after should be before. And Ms. Randolph, sorry. Can you tell us again which part on page 89 you're requesting that last change? Yeah, absolutely. Page 89, third paragraph down to fifth line down, the word after, second word. So it says the dental unit lines and devices shall be flushed after each patient for a minimum of 20 seconds. It should be before each patient for a minimum of 20 seconds. And then the last suggestion is on the last page. We just want some clarification. It's been stricken, C, to review this annually. We understand reviewing this annually is probably way too often. We haven't done it in, 14 years? So annually is a big ask, but it's removing any type of review of the 1005. Maybe it should be semi-annual or biannually, whatever it is, every 2 years, or have some kind of review requirement. Thank you.
Hello, Anthony Lum, Executive Officer of the Dental Hygiene Board. I just wanted to come up here and say thank you for the collaborative efforts between all of the experts on both teams. Mr. Nelson has done an incredible job to put everybody together, every last minute detail and specifics that have been changed in these regulations, which actually started the discussion between my board and your board in 2018. Last minute changes, he's done an incredible job. Both legal teams have done an incredible job, and again, the experts on both sides. So I just wanted to say thank you for the collaborative effort on this regulation update, and we really appreciate the efforts between both boards. Thank you.
Thank you. Board staff, please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item.
Is there opportunity for discussion?
Oh, yeah, we can do that. Is there any further discussion from the board?
Christy Shields, Regulations Council. Can I speak?
Yes, please.
Hi, this is Christy Shields, Regulations Council for the board. I apologize I couldn't be with you in person today. We weren't able to hear all of the comments because we're getting an echo on our end. But I think my recommendation would be to move the proposal forward as motioned by the council members, because I think we're going to get comments no matter what. This is in my history with the board, I worked on the prior regulations back in 2010, and we're going to get comments. So I think that, my recommendation would be to move it forward as motioned, because I think we want the issue is the timing and being able to get in updates as quickly as possible. And I think at this point, I would expect we're going to get more comments during the public comment period for this regulation, because it is such a highly technical subject matter, and it's very important, as Mr. Nelson mentioned, for the protection of the public and the staff that work at dental offices and the dentists. So I think that my recommendation would be to move the proposal forward, and we can address these comments during the public comment period we get going forward. If you have any questions, please let us know.
Miyazaki?
So I understand the timing issue is important, but I believe that there's 2 points that were stated during the public comment section. And I think that stakeholders sometimes not available for public comment in person, but if they can submit their letters in person. But I just wanted to mention that on page 86 of the reading materials, under the second paragraph, utility gloves should be cleaned and sterilized. It's not consistent with the language prior to that. If the legislative council believes that that can be easily fixed during the public comment, then I don't request an amendment. Also, the second one I think that is important is on page 89 of the meeting materials, that the dental unit water lines under D, that it actually should be before each patient. And upon reading the materials, it does say after, but I know that was a sticking point before. So I believe that the after really needs to be replaced with before. But again, if the legislative council thinks that that can be changed during the public comment section and with the dental hygiene, the DHBC recommendations, that might be something that we could move forward without having a revision and just keeping the motion as is.
So I have a question. If we vote to accept attachment number 2, are we still able to change those few keywords that I agree with the Alliance should be changed to different? And to clarify, were we voting to move attachment number 2 forward as Mr. Brandt, or as Mr. Nelson suggested? Is that the clarification that we're voting on, to go with attachment number 2?
This is Tara Welch. From what I heard from your regulations council, Ms. Shields, her recommendation was to move attachment 2 forward to the board now. It will then go to the DHBC for their approval as well, and then make these additional changes during the 45-day public comment period. Ms. Shields, if I'm incorrect, please speak up. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm Miyazaki, so how likely is it that those 2 would be changed or there's no?
So obviously Ms. Shields more knowledgeable. And first off, not an attorney, not a dentist, not a physician, not a firefighter, none of those things that are cool. But I will say that my understanding of the regulatory process is that 45-day comment period, anybody can come in with any comment and we can, still work with the language. Now, one of the issues with working on regulations is we have what's known as the Office of Administrative Law. And so that is a bunch of lawyers that work in one of the high-rise buildings in Sacramento, and their job is to almost like very judge-like look at the language and determine if it meets certain standards. So contingent that these changes meet with OAL approval and Ms. Shields agrees that they can proceed, which I'm very optimistic that could happen. I can't make any guarantees, but I do think these changes are not like insane changes. Like, I think these are important changes, and we'll treat it as such. And one of the issues is the timing. It takes so long to get something through regulations. It is so long. So it's very important that we start now. Otherwise, I might retire. So that's all.
Tara Welch, it's also, it was so time consuming because we have to go back and forth with the Dental Hygiene Board. And we have been seeking public comment for quite a while on this particular package. And we had hoped to have all public comment on this regulation before we presented it today because we presented it in February. So it's frustrating to continue to get public comments on this regulation. We need to get this rolling and in law because we know it is significantly outdated. So Ms. Shields will need to review the proposed edits. If they can be submitted in writing, that would be very helpful because from what I understand, it's very difficult to hear from the webcast. And we will then have to run those additional edits past the Dental Hygiene Board and their expert before we can have any agreement to make the edits. But the proposal is, as it stands right now in your packet, and we hope to resolve any additional requests for edits during the 45-day public comment period.
Thank you. Board staff, please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item.
This is Marilla Taran. I will now call the roll. Epps Robbins.
Epps Robbins, aye.
Fowler.
Fowler, aye.
Gerlach.
Gerlach, aye.
Lurman.
Lorraine, aye.
Miyazaki.
Miyazaki, aye.
Olagi.
Olagi, aye.
Smith.
Smith, aye.
The motion passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 13, adjournment. Thank you.